Hey guys, welcome to season 4, episode 1 of the Talking Some Sens podcast. This year we've got a whole new lineup. I'm going to introduce him real quick. We've got Alex Langlois. You guys know him already. He's been around the whole time.
How's it going?
Yeah, there's Alex there. We've got Dave St-Amour. And then to my right, you'll see Chris Sinclair. And then there's me. So this year we're going to be doing a whole new format of the show. We'll be doing not all four of us is going to be on every episode. That's going to get boring real quick for you guys. We're going to rotate things around, and it's going to be super fun. So you get different voices, different point of views. But the whole point is just going to be more collaboration this year. We're going to be really working together to give different ideas and perspectives. So with that being said, let's get right into the episode with going through what's going on. So today's episode, we're going to give a quick off-season recap. So we're going to talk about all the moves the Ottawa Senators made this off-season, including a move that was just done the other day. We're going to go fun fact of the day, because we're going to do that now. We're going to go through a new segment called the What If segment. So that's going to be talking about a move that could be done differently, or how would we do it. And last but not least, we will have an interview with Ottawa Senators prospect Zack Ostapchuk that we recorded just the other day, Chris and myself. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So the first move we're going to talk about is a signing that was made, I'm going to say, on Wednesday, September 6th. So that would be, this is going to come out on Monday, so just a few days ago. Jake Sanderson has signed an 8-year contract extension worth an annual average value of $8.05 million per year. How are we feeling about this, guys?
All right, who's going to go first? I'll go first. First off, I'm ecstatic. We have our young core now locked up. Everybody for good money. And there's a lot of haters out there that are complaining about, the contract. And it's obviously people who haven't watched him play, people who know nothing about it, or they're our rivals. That's pretty much the extent to it. But I think Jake Sanderson, 8 years, he's going to be one of the best. That's going to look like a bargain contract.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as obviously through Twitter, everyone's ecstatic about this. This is one of, I would say, arguably, you look at Stützle, you look at Sanderson, you probably look at Brady Tkachuk being the top one in that sort of regard. But it was interesting because as I was going through Twitter today, Everyday Sens posted, it's hilarious to watch other fan bases pull if Ottawa's core is so good, why didn't they make the playoffs card? But when you think about all of the other aspects that came into play last season, this is one of those things that's absolutely going to elevate this team moving forward and is absolutely going to take us to the next level when we have now a top 4 that is absolutely incredible. When we talk about Chabot, Chychrun, we talk about Zub and Sanderson. My goodness, if you throw that against any other team in the league, I cannot imagine another team coming close to that.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is probably one of the bigger signings that I remember in a while anyways. Having the core locked up with Tkachuk and Sanderson for such a long time. I mean, the issue for the longest time was no one wanted to stay in Ottawa. No one wanted to commit. And Sanderson even said today, he said, once I seen Timmy and Brady do it, he's like, I knew I wanted to do this long term. I believe it's also there's a no movement clause as well in the deal. For the final 3 seasons, there's a 10-team no trade clause. So that's great.
Which is useless because they'll never trade him.
Yeah, exactly. But
and to the people complain about the $8 million, $8 million is the new $6 million. So,
well, and also I was listening to TSN 1200 today, and JR pointed out, look at the numbers on that contract. So his number is 85, 8.05. I wonder if there's some correlation there as well, right?
There has to be.
Yeah. So another thing I was thinking, though, is if we want to talk comparables, I think the best current comparable to Jake Sanderson currently is prime Ryan McDonagh. Prime Ryan McDonagh made $6.5 million over, I'm going to say it was either 6 or 7 years when he signed with the Tampa Bay. No, the it was a 4-year deal. He signed $6.5 million. So cap wise, percentage wise, I'm pretty sure it's about the same, and they're providing similar role. I think Jake Sanderson is going to start the lineup as a second pairing for the first little bit, and then he'll move to that first pair in a month or two. Is what I think it's going to be.
True.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison. I'd also compare him to more of a Miro Heiskanen over in Dallas. Similar kind of play style, signed for about a similar amount. I think they're pretty much identical in play style, both very offensive minded, but can also keep the puck out of the zone and know where they are defensively too. So Ryan McDonough's a good one, but I personally think he's closer to Miro Heiskanen than anything.
That's fair. That's fair. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
That being said, though, let's move on to our next segment. We'll just get this done really quickly for you guys because this is all old news. We just got to talk about it real quick. The first one is so we're going to be talking about the offseason recap. We're going to go through the significant moves that were made this offseason. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, just the more significant ones. So we'll start with the Joonas Korpisalo signing a 5-year contract with a $4 million annual average out value. Korpisalo last season played 39 games between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Los Angeles Kings, where he amassed an 18-14-4 record. He had a 2.87 goals against average and a .915 save percentage. These were top 10 numbers last year in the NHL. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I love it. I mean, we finally have our goaltending locked up. That seemed to be the biggest issue when Craig Anderson left, was trying to find someone to take over that role. You had multiple. It was like a goaltender carousel in Ottawa for the longest time. There's so many goalies that we went through. Having Korpisalo and Forsberg as the 1A, I would even argue maybe 1A, 1B. I don't necessarily see them as starter and backup, but Korpisalo, he's had a top 10 numbers last year, and he's proven that he can play. He's a playoff competitor. He that game in Columbus against Toronto. He has experience, which is at the end of the day what I think we really needed in goal. It was a goaltender that can bring experience to the team.
So for me, there's a question mark there, right? Because he's never proven to be like a legit number one, but he's also at that age where goalies usually come into their game. And last year you saw him significantly improve. I think the contract itself is great. It's low numbers for 5 years, which is exactly what Ottawa needed. If he can come to Ottawa and if he could maintain a decent save percentage and goals against average, and Ottawa forwards can have their defensive game step it up a little bit, because defense can be good, but we got to make sure our forwards can play defense too and keep as much as they can to the outside and challenge him a lot less than for example when he played on a Columbus. I think he can hold his own, and I'm really hoping he's one of those Craig Andersons where he's coming in a little bit late and he's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think that obviously, and myself included, you kind of, when you think of Korpisalo, you think of him during his time in Columbus, and you see the numbers in Columbus, and that kind of makes you squirm a little bit uncomfortably. But I would say, when you look at since he's had his hip surgery, because that's what was holding him back, you see a player that's actually the more refined, more agile, more, you see him being able to move laterally more and much more easily. And I would say that's the player that we saw with Los Angeles is the player that we should expect to see here. Now, I totally get the perspective around, few games. He's never been a legitimate starter in the league. But I think we're kind of now also in a spot in the league in which we don't really see like a legitimate starter who's going to play 50, 60 games. We're going to kind of see a little bit more of a platoon sort of situation. And that's something that I think both of our players are going to, both Korpisalo and Forsberg are going to really thrive upon. Plus, they've already been teammates. So that competitive piece, there's not going to be one of them that's saying, hey, listen, I want to play more. I want to play, there's going to be a better dynamic, a more friendly competition there. And I think that's something that we've also been lacking, where some players are going to be negative towards not getting that starting time, wherein now we're going to be in a spot in which both players are going to feel comfortable being able to kind of compete against one another, because They won a championship together. They like each other. They've gone back years together. So this is going to be really great. I'm super stoked for this. Although I will say, initially, I was terrified of it because I only think of Korpisalo from his Columbus days. But when you just think about post-surgery, that's the player we need to focus on.
That's fair. I think that Korpisalo's got the potential to be, at worst, an average starter in the NHL, and at best, a top 15 starter in the NHL, which is exactly what we need from him. I could see him be a good 50-game guy, and Forsberg will get the last 30-ish games, and I think it'll be a good tandem if all goes well, obviously, barring no injuries. But with that being said, we're gonna go next to two minor signings that I figured they're going to be playing some NHL time, so I figured I'd include them on the list. But we're going to get them done at the same time. There's Boko Imama, who was signed after playing for the Arizona Coyotes organization the last couple of years, and Zack McEwen, who's jumped around the league a little bit, most recently playing, I believe, with the Vancouver Canucks, but I don't know for sure. I think it was probably someone else. But both players are probably going to be fighting for a similar role in this lineup. And I don't think either of them will last the entire season in the NHL. I think they're going to fluctuate between the NHL and the AHL. I think for a fourth line enforcer type of player replacing Austin Watson, that's all you really need out of them. I don't think they'll play every single game. I think Yuri Smekal, or I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name. I think he'll be more of a staple on that fourth line than those two players. I think those two players will rotate that fourth line right wing slot.
Yeah, I think we signed two guys that are similar roles. But at the end of the day, if you got them both on a game where we're playing against another tough team like Toronto, for example, it might benefit us to have them both on the lineup. This way you don't have Brady fighting. Offensively, they don't bring much to the table, but they'll protect the team.
That's fair, yeah. The next player we're going to talk about is Vladimir Tarasenko. He signed a one-year contract with the Senators, totaling $5 million. Obviously, Tarasenko is an interesting player. I'll let Dave talk about that one, though.
I'll just start off really quick. So I watched Tarasenko for a long time, and I've always loved his game. He's got this move where he comes down the boards, cuts through the middle, and takes that shot, and it's flawless, and he's really good. And I think don't matter who he plays with at center, he would benefit more with Stützle, but even with Norris, I think they're going to put up a bunch of points. Whatever line he's on, he's going to have a really good year, and he's going to elevate his line 100%.
Yeah, I have him slotted in first line right wing. I think that's, to your point, Dave, I think that he's going to benefit really well from Stützle being his centerman. Because he's more of a finisher. Stützle loves to finish, obviously we saw, but I would say that he would be better suited on the first line. I think we're going to see a Tarasenko anytime you sign a one-year contract. That's a prove-it contract, right? So I would see a player who's going to come in here and he said he sees potential in this team, but he also wants to prove that he deserves one more long-term contract, right? And so from this is going to be a huge year from him. I'm projecting anywhere between 25 to 30 goals from him. And when you think about that, that makes up in and of itself what we lost in DeBrincat, right? So that's kind of what I would expect from this kind of player.
What you think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, the signing, I was excited about it. I still am excited. There is a bit of caution on my end just because of his history of being a player that kind of fades away sometimes. He's kind of a streaky player. In St. Louis, he was the guy for a while, and then he slowly started to fade, and then he got that injury, and he wasn't never really the same. So there is concerns there, but I do think this is the perfect player that can play in the first line, like you said, Chris, or even on the second line with whoever DJ decides to put there, whether it's Norris and Batherson or Claude and Batherson or Claude and Norris or Claude and Stützle. There's so many options that they could do with, and I think he's talented enough to hang with those guys. I think he's gonna. I think he might have a career year this year, to be honest. Like there's obviously that like issue with the injury that's always going to be there, and that I don't know. I think he's gonna have a career, and I think it's the perfect signing to replace DeBrincat. A one-year deal to me is low risk, high reward type deal. They're really, like, if he doesn't have a career year, so what? I mean, he's still going to, like you said, Chris, probably put up 20, 25 goals regardless, just because of who he's playing with and the talent. So I think it's a great move by Pierre Dorian. And then get him that much, $5 million for 1 year is pretty good for a player his talent. And then we'll see where it goes after that. But I think he's like the perfect guy for DeBrincat, and I don't think they necessarily would have made that DeBrincat move if they knew he wasn't waiting in the wings. So I think this is a great complimentary piece, and seeing him with Stützle gets me so excited for hockey season. Those two are just going to dominate offensively. So,
see, that's fair. I think that your point with Tarasenko having a career year is definitely a hot take that I'm here for. And I'm going to say I actually agree with it, because Tarasenko had one bad year and he scored, I think, 22 goals. I think it was last year. The year before he scored 34. He's good for a 30-goal season, easy peasy. I think his career high, I believe, is 37 or 39 goals. I could see him definitely hit the 40 to 43 goal mark if he plays with Tim Stützle. That's what I would really like.
Whoa, talk about a hot take.
Seriously.
Definite hot take. That's definite hot take, and I know I'm gonna eat crow for that. But I'm setting the standards high, because he's definitely a really good player. His injury was a shoulder injury, which is definitely scary considering Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, and we even lost Tim Stützle sometimes to shoulders injuries. Other Senators just don't have good shoulders. That's all there is to it.
The biggest concern, I'm going to touch on this real quick, but the biggest concern for me with Tarasenko is, will DJ Smith be able to get the most out of him? His style, I don't know if it necessarily fits DJ Smith's coaching style, but from what I've seen on Twitter and the offseason, DJ's look like he's kind of trying to change his approach this year to a bit more aggressive, a bit more offensively minded. So we'll see if it works, but his concern, like, that's probably the biggest issue, is whether or not him and DJ will click, but we'll have to wait and see.
If I see Tarasenko playing dump and chase, that's what I'll do.
The good old Pierre Dorian, man.
Yeah, the good old Pierre Dorian. And for those not watching on YouTube, I just threw my water bottle at my backdrop, and I was for sure it was going to fall. And it didn't, so we're good.
There's nails in it. It ain't going anywhere.
Yes. All right, next topic.
So we're going to talk a little bit right now about, it happened, the Alex DeBrincat trade. So we saw this, we knew this was going to happen late in the season. We kind of got the feeling that this might happen, and then it did happen. So Alex DeBrincat was traded to Detroit. So great little homecoming for him. Grew up just outside of Detroit. He was traded to Detroit for Dominic Kubalik, Donovan Sabrango, a nice Ottawa resident. A conditional first, which is kind of complicated, in 2024, and a fourth in 2024. Then DeBrincat turns around and signs an extension with Detroit. It's a 4-year extension worth $7.75 annually. So last season, he scored 27 goals, had 39 assists. That comes out to you, for the math people out there, 66 points in 82 games. So he played the full season, which is great. What are our thoughts on that? What are our thoughts on the trade? What are our thoughts on the what we got back, the return?
I'll go first really quick if you guys are okay with it. So first things first, we're going to boo DeBrincat when it comes to Ottawa. But we all loved him. He did his job in Ottawa. He had a down year, to his standards, a down year. But he came out and he was phenomenal. And he took a hometown discount, a shorter contract to go home. People are saying he didn't want to play in Ottawa. It's not that he didn't want to play in Ottawa. He wanted to play in specific spots, Detroit being the number one. And we get it. His family's from there. The other teams that we're looking at him were teams close to home. I think with adding Kubalik, he's not as good as DeBrincat, but he has been in the past. I think if you put him with the right players, he can really rejuvenate his game. Not that it needs a major boost, but you could put him in the right mindset. And I think if you put him in a winning atmosphere and he gets along with all the guys in the locker room, he might be a long-term, guy that we sign. Really quick, as for DeBrincat, I've been following him since his first World Juniors. It's beautiful. I love that kid. I don't think he'll ever be like a solid NHLer. He might fit into like a bottom pairing. And if that's his job later on, that's his job later on. But that's my opinion on him.
Yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it on the head there. If I had to grade this, if I had to give Pierre Dorian a grade, if I was a teacher or something and he gave me the trade on a paper and I had to grade it, I'd personally probably give it a B minus B-ish, just based off of the return could have been better for sure, but understanding that like Dave said, DeBrincat kind of only really wanted to go to specific teams and didn't really want to. It was either that or to sign him for a year and then lost him for really nothing. So, considering Pierre Dorian's hands were tied, getting someone back like Kubalik, who can play in the top 9, no problem. And if there's an injury, a short-term injury that he needs to fill in, he has no problem falling up to that top 6 and kind of filling in there. I don't know how well he'll do long-term up there, but he's one of those guys that is very versatile and adds a much needed scoring punch to our bottom 6. That's definitely was one of the biggest issues for the team last year was the bottom 6. So adding him there, I think, is fantastic. Zabrango, I don't know. I don't really see him accomplishing much, but nice Ottawa boy. He'd probably be a great key piece for Belleville. If he gets called up here and there, it's not. It'll probably happen. He's more of a depth kind of guy, in my opinion. I don't really see him, like Dave said, I don't really see him being a full-time NHL or carving out a full-time NHL role anywhere, but those depth guys are important, and I do think Zabrango definitely has the potential to be an NHL player, not a regular one, but so I give it a B minus, depending. I think Kubalik's a fantastic ad. I think that was kind of the guy that everybody kind of circled on their thing when the rumor started circling around DeBrincat going to Detroit, right? It was Kubalik, we got Rasmussen and all those guys. So the fact that Pierre Dorian was able to get Kubalik out of there, I think he did a fine job with the trade.
So my thoughts on before we move on to the next one is I think that Dominant Zabrango, I love the fact that he's a local lad, and I will always root for a local lad. So I'm gonna say screw you guys. He's gonna be a regular NHLer just because he's a local lad, but I don't think he's gonna be a top of the lineup player. I think at worst he's going to slot in as a 7th defenseman who plays 20 to maybe 25 games a year. And at best, he'll be a regular six defenseman. The one issue is he's a left shot. So he's going to be fighting with Eric Brandstrom and Tyler Clevin. So that's why I lean more towards the fact that he'd be Ottawa's 7th defenseman once he's fully prepared. And that's no problem. Every team needs a 7th defenseman, and that's why I think he sits in that slot.
Hot take Jake over here. Holy smokes.
Oh my goodness.
In that case. I
Wow.
I love the hot takes. You guys know it.
Wait, when are we projecting that out? Like, we're not talking this season or next
not
season
this year.
or the next season. It's like
I'm going to say by age 23, 24.
He's like 2021 now, so I mean
he's 20. He's 20.
So 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, because we'll see. We should have a bet on it for sure. But
okay, we'll think of something later. But yeah, we'll definitely bet on that one. And my next one is Dominic Kubalik. I'm not going to talk about the draft pick because I don't know the draft. I don't know anything about the draft this year yet. I haven't done research yet. That's for a later time. But Dominic Kubalik last year scored 20 goals, 25 assists, and 45 points in 81 games played. He has 1 year left at $2.5 million. He's a former 30-goal scorer. Scored 30 goals, 16 assists for 46 points in 68 games played in 2019-2020, which was his rookie season. So my thoughts with Dominic Kubalik, he scored less goals than he normally does, but he had one less point than his career high. So I think he'll be slotting in on the third line this year, and I can expect – I'm going to say 15 to 20 goals out of him is a fair expectation on the third line. I'm going to say 35 to 40 points, depending on how many assists he gets. So I think he's going to be having a second power play role, which might give him a bit more goals. So maybe we'll see maybe a bit more than 20. But I think 15 and 20 is a fair expectation. And I think he actually sees some PK time with Shane Pinto because I really think that DJ Smith is going to lean into duos. So we're going to see like Tim Stutz will be paired with Brady Tkachuk. We're going to see Josh Norris be paired with Jake Batherson. And I think that Dominic Kubalik and Shane Pinto are going to be paired together whenever Shane Pinto does sign. So that's why I think Kubalik does see PK time with Shane Pinto. It'll be the second PK time because I think Tim Stutz has a first line PK, but we'll see what happens. So, and that's if Shane Pinto signs a damn contract, right?
I wasn't going to say it, but you did. I was going to say it.
When he signs.
Yeah, it's a matter of when.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a when.
Yeah.
I think that, we'll talk about that in the next little bit, though. With that being said, though, I want to make a big announcement. We have joined the Hockey Podcast Network, and we're very, very thankful to join their crew. And in case you didn't see the intro slide on the YouTube, we're part of the Hockey Podcast Network. So now we'll get into our first ever ad read, first of many. I'm not usually going to be a whole announcement about it, but for the first time, I figured I should. Can you guys believe that we had 7 months? Yeah, 7 months without an NFL game. Crazy, right? Absolutely bananas. Well, good thing that's over. NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a cannot miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly. $200. That's insane. And this is only when you bet $5 on an NFL game. Any NFL game. Any game at all. DraftKings is hooking everybody up. They're hooking me up. They're hooking you up. You, Chris. You, Alex. You, Dave. They're hooking my grandma up. They're hooking your dog up. So anybody can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you can get. Download now and use code THBN to sign up. New customers can take home $200, like I just said, in bonus bets instantly for only betting $5. That's code THBN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibility. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resorts, 21 plus age with age verified varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility. Terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. So the next segment is we're going to be starting doing. This is going to be a thing we do every single episode. Fun fact of the day. So my fun fact of the day is Vladimir Tarasenko, the new Ottawa Senator, is the first number 91 since Alexander Daigle and the second 91 in franchise history. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Does that doom him or does that make him the best?
All right, I'll take it first. I don't think it dooms him. Alexander Daigle he was never a bust per se. He just wasn't what we thought he was going to be. He still had a decent career. He always had good numbers. He was a good player, but everyone expected him to be like the 90s version of what we have with Connor McDavid. That's kind of what the expectation was. So as far as expectations go, he was a bust. Career-wise, he had a decent career. I do think Tarasenko will be the better 91 in Ottawa, though.
Well, that's great. You stole all my points. So, I would say, listen, Tarasenko, we've agreed that he's going to have a career year, or he's going to at least outperform what he's done in the past few seasons. He's far and away going to be a better Ottawa Senator than Dag was. I've been a Sens fan for my entire life, and I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember ever watching or really caring about Dag. So I would say that's probably an indication as to, obviously he came in, he was supposed to be this big, incredibly amazing player. It didn't pan out. He moved on. Things kind of worked out for him. That's fine. I'm down with that. But Tarasenko is absolutely going to be a better 91 than Dag was. That's I will die on that hill.
I just want to add, Dag was a beautiful man. Very.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's fair. That's fair.
That may help to make up for his scoring woes.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I can go, but there really isn't much left to be said. You guys kind of nailed it on the head. Tarasenko's going to be the better number 1 or better number 91 in Ottawa by the end of his 1-year contract, hopefully longer. But even if it's not, like you said, Dagwood was fine, but didn't live up to expectations. So I don't really know how much more I can add to this conversation.
The last thing I gotta say is that I own the. I think this gives me a good opportunity to show the coolest piece of Ottawa Senators memorabilia that I own. I think I showed this to you guys earlier. For guys watching on YouTube, it's absolutely dope. Otherwise, you can really skip the next 30 seconds. But it's Alex Dangle signed plaque. It's pretty.
That's
cool.
got to be worth like 88 cents, right?
I know. I was like,
Probably.
he may be the only person who has that and still carries it around with pride as if it's his first ever trophy.
It's probably closer to 91 cents now, though, isn't it?
Inflation. But Alex Dangle, I'm too young. I'm really, really young compared to these farts. I think the next youngest is 27, and I just turned 21. So I'm really young. So I don't remember.
Who's 27? I need to know that.
I thought that was you.
No, I'm almost 30, dude.
Oh my god.
I'm 29.
Oh my god. Because I
I'm
know
the dad.
Chris.
I'm the dad.
I know Chris is the second oldest and Dave's the oldest. That I do know. My god, I'm young.
We like to make sure that we carry we cover as many of the generations as possible in this podcast.
This is true.
That's an important thing for us.
Now we have to get someone's grandpa to join.
Yes, I'm working on it.
Bet.
So now that we've talked a little bit about a great fun fact of the day, next up we have a segment we like to call What If, where we talk about something that happened, but what if it didn't or it did happen? Well, this time we're going to talk about what if we never traded Philip Gustafson for Cam Talbot. So just to kind of provide perspective, last season, Gustafson, he finished 39 games played, 22.97 with a 2.33 goals against and a 9.21 save percentage. Talbot played in 36 games, which is actually more than I thought. He finished with a 17, 14, and 2 record, 2.93 goals against, and 8.98 save percentage. What are our thoughts around this? Let's go Alex first.
Well, I was waiting for this one because I know in the group chat we had a bit of a going back and forth here, but I don't really have much to say on this one. I mean, it's too early to tell, but I probably have to pick sides. So if I had to redo the trade, I'd do it 10 out of 10 again. I think it was sure Gustafson had a way better season and kind of better trajectory now, but when he was with us, he stunk. He was not good. And sure, he was Minnesota had a better team in front of him. There's all these factors that he could contribute. Talbot came in with a lot of experience, which is what the end game was to bring in experience in the back end there. He didn't live up to expectations and didn't have a great season in Ottawa. But if I'm Pierre Dorian going into the season, being like, should I bring Gustafson? And he's about 25 years old now, about to reach his peak, or to try and take a chance on a veteran goaltender who has the experience of playoffs, has the experience of playing in important games. That was always the goal, right? And playing important games until April. I still think we did it. So I would do the trade 10 out of 10 again.
So here's where I flex on you guys and I tell you everything I know about Cam Talbot. So Cam Talbot was undrafted and he eventually made his way to the New York Rangers organization with the original aspirations of being an AHL goalie. He was only supposed to be an AHL goalie. He would make the opening night roster in the 2014-15 season, I think it was, and he served as the backup to Henrik Lundqvist. Okay. He was pretty much a good backup at his time in New York, but he was too good to be a backup is what the issue was. So eventually he was traded to the Edmonton Oilers close to the 2015 draft. I forgot what the trade was for, but originally he was fighting, fun fact, Ottawa Senators legend Anders Nielsen for the starting spot, which resulted in one of the two being traded away. So Nielsen, I believe, Nielsen was traded to the St. Louis Blues, which paved the way for Talbot. Talbot pretty much took the team on his back. He suited, I'm gonna say it was either 71 or 75. It was something really stupid. He suited up in over 70 games, and I think he finished 4th overall in Vezina Trophy voting that year. I think it was that. And he just had a ridiculous year, but he overplayed and kind of had a rough 2 subsequent seasons after that, which led him to go to the Calgary Flames. And then he jumped around a bit, found his way to Minnesota. And then Fleury obviously went to Minnesota, right? So he had the Bill Guerin decided to choose between Fleury and Talbot, and obviously decided to trade Talbot. At the time, I fully understood why the trade was made. I was not expecting the trade to be made, but I understood why it was made. I was and still am a big Philip Gustafsson fan. I love Goose. He's ever since we acquired him, I told myself he's the goalie of the future. He's the goalie of the future. He's going to win us a cup. And I was at first I was very like upset that we traded away Gustafsson at the trade. But I was like, you know what? I like the trade because we're getting someone proven. Worst case scenario, we have the guy for a year. Best case scenario, we sign him for a couple more years till whoever next comes up. Obviously, worst case scenario happened. Cam Talbot did not play his best. But I will say it's not his fault. He was injured. So that's my thoughts on that.
I'll be quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The guy was an all-star the year before he came to Ottawa.
Yes.
He was an all-star. Comes to Ottawa, gets hurt. Defense isn't great. He bums out. So I think it's a bit of mix of that and a bit of he's at the tail end of his career. It was a bit of a mix of both. And the reason why I think we chose this specific what if was just for the one season, because it honestly does have the same smell as the Brassard for Zibanejad situation, right?
Man, you're opening up old wounds.
We won't get into it, but we know we were trading future for trying to win now. At the time, that was the right call to make. Same thing with the Gus for Talbot. At the time, it was one of those, it hurt us, but we understood it kind of trades. And just like the Brassard and Zibanejad trade, though, it didn't work out. I'm saying we love Brassard. We've had him back again, right, for another year, and he's a good guy. Just at the end of the day, we'd rather have kept Zibanejad in the long run. But here we are.
Big game, Brass.
Yeah, and just quickly from my perspective, Alex, I'm with you on this one. I would 10 out of 10 do this every day of the week. I thought it was the right call at the time. Absolutely. I would also say it's important for perspective. When you look at the teams that play in front of Talbot, they're typically, when Talbot has his best numbers, like he did in Minnesota, he has a better defense, or at least a better defensive structure in front of him, which helps him because he doesn't move laterally very well. He doesn't have a lot of speed from that perspective. So he looks even better when the teams are really good. But because Ottawa was still figuring out, they still had Zaitsev, they still had to figure out where their defense was. I think that's what held him back. If we had him now with the defense we have, I think we would have seen a different Cam Talbot. And I think that would have been more representative and something that the fans would have appreciated and enjoyed more, because they would have seen the Talbot that plays really well when there's a good defensive structure. With all that being said, I miss Philip Gustafsson. Absolutely. I thought that there was more there, but I would have done that trade every day of the week. We needed more veterans in the locker room. So I'm totally fine with it. And last year was just about pushing it a little bit further, and we did that. Now we have a better goaltending tandem that's actually going to push us in.
Gus did not want to be in Ottawa either.
Well, yeah, he was kind of toyed around there a little bit with call-ups and being kind of bogged down in the minors. So, yeah, that's fair.
I will say, before we move on, my last little bits, I agree with the trade, and it should have been done. It turned out horribly, but it was the right trade at the time. Looking back, hindsight 2020, you can't do that. That's what we're trying to do right now. So I will say, considering everything that happened, I would prefer having a Forsberg and Gustafsson tandem, but I'm not mad at how it turned out, because now we have Korpisalo, who is a better goalie than both of those two combined at the current moment in time. With that being said, that was that segment for today. The last thing we will leave you before we sign off today is we were recently recorded an interview with Ottawa Senators prospect Zack Ostapchuk. He was drafted in the second round of the 2021 NHL draft, the only good pick in that draft by Ottawa. I'll say it right there. He will be the first player from the 2021 draft class for the Ottawa Senators to suit up a game in the NHL. He will play in the NHL before Tyler Boucher. And this interview, I think he really painted a picture of how important it is to work hard and how important it is to, while working hard, also having fun with the guys he's playing with. Chris and I did that interview. So, Chris, do you want to take a minute to talk about it before we cut to that?
Yeah, I would just say that it was obviously, first and foremost, it's great for him to take the time. Obviously, he's preparing for camp. He's got a lot of things that he's doing. But not only did we hear some really awesome pieces about, what it was like for him to get originally drafted into the WHL with the Vancouver Giants, but we also heard a little bit about what it was like for him to connect with his billet families and what it was like to play for Team Canada twice and what that selection process was like. So it was a really great opportunity for us to be able to connect with one of Ottawa's top prospects, and just to be able to learn a little bit more about what it was like for him to get to where he is now, from juniors all the way up to where he's at now. So it was an incredible experience. I spent about a half hour or so with him, and he was just such a beaut.
That's fair. That's a very, very good point. And with that being said, I'm not going to keep you guys too long. This episode has been really, really long. I promise you the goal is to shorten episodes. Our goal is to have 30 minutes to 45 at the tops. Today's episode, just this segment we're recording now, it's going to be over 40-ish minutes with a 25-minute interview with Zack. So
I got to go eat dinner.
Yeah, we've got to go eat dinner. We got to go to bed. We're recording this late. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, Zack, for taking the time to sit down with us. It was really, really appreciated. And we'd love to have him on. Great answers, and I was very, very happy to sit down and talk with him. Just let us know whenever you're ready there.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. And welcome back to Talking Some Sens. We are currently with a very special guest. We will be talking to Zack Ostapchuk, recent second round pick by the Ottawa Senators. And I'm blanking if it's the 2020 or 2021 draft. I'm pretty sure it's 2021. And he's been just great so far. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for taking the time out of your schedule. You've got a lot of things going on right now, and it's really great that you decided you wanted to hang out with us on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time. Let's start off with a super fun one, just to get the mood going in a good way. So I've seen a lot of people do this online, talking about their ideal athletes, combining things like LeBron James' athleticism, Tom Brady's durability, or even Connor Bedard's quads. If you could build your ideal athlete, how would you do that?
Oh, let me see. I'll take Giannis Antetokounmpo's height. I'll take LeBron's build. Give me Tyreek Hill's speed. And who thinks the game really well? Give me like the way Messi thinks the game of soccer.
That's fair. It's actually a really interesting athlete, someone I never want to play against.
Yeah.
Ooh. Just kind of a quick follow-up to that. Why did you choose some of those attributes? Like, what was it? Are they some of your favorite players, or what does that look like?
Yeah, they're all of them, some of my favorite players in their respective sports. I mean, all the top of their game. Get Giannis's height. I mean, the guy's like 6'11" or something. So I'll take that. That wouldn't hurt. LeBron's pretty ripped. I mean, and you see what Messi does up there. So.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
My next follow-up on that really quickly. What sport is this athlete playing?
We're gonna put him in a hockey game.
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
I can just picture it now. 6'11" going down the ice. Man, I wouldn't want to. It's just like Chara all over again, right?
Yeah. Some of that Tyreek Hill speed too. Wow.
Yeah. Great. Thanks. Great answer. Growing up, who would you say was someone you looked up to or inspired you? And it can be either on the ice or even off the ice if you want to as well.
Yeah, I think just a lot of my peers. Like, I mean, I grew up in St-Amour, and we had a lot of good hockey players there. So, I mean, we had a lot of my buddies are signed in the NHL, like just guys that I grew up with. So, I mean, just kind of looking up to them, and we look up to each other. I mean, pushing each other to be better in whatever we're doing. I mean, we're all highly competitive guys, and I think it's pretty cool that, I mean, like 5 out of my best buddies are all signed in the NHL now. So, yeah.
Cool. Love it. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, based on that, you just mentioned some of your buddies. I'll bring you back to that time many years ago. Not too long ago, though. You're not that old. Do you remember what it was like to prepare for the WHL draft, and what was it like to hear your name called by the Vancouver Giants? And more recently, what was it like to know you've finally been drafted to the NHL?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know the WHL draft was a thing until the second years on my team all got drafted the year before I did. So then I was like, oh, I mean that'd be pretty cool. So, and yeah, I guess that was my goal going into that year. And then to be picked by Vancouver in the first round there. I mean, it was honestly the ideal spot. I mean, my mom used to live out there for 10 years, went to school out there, so it was really nice for her. She actually moved out there full time now. So, I mean, Vancouver was the ideal spot for me. And then same thing with the NHL draft. Obviously, I knew about the NHL draft my whole life. But, I mean, to get called by Ottawa, and it was during COVID, so we had a big party at my house. And, just to be able to share that moment with my friends and family, it was really cool.
Do you just kind of follow up on that? When we, obviously with COVID, that kind of threw a wrench in a lot of different things, and including the NHL draft. Do you wish that you had the opportunity to be up on that stage, or do you actually think that it was even maybe in a weird way even better to you that you got to experience that with your like friends and family at home?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been cool to walk the stage and all that, and just have that experience. I mean, I think my year was in Montreal, so that would have been pretty cool. But I guess it was a pretty unique experience. I mean, not a lot of people can say that they were like drafted in that way, I guess. And so I mean, it was kind of cool just how unique that draft was. But the next year I went with my buddy Matt Savoy down to Montreal, just kind of taking his experience. So I got to see it firsthand, and it was pretty cool.
Look at you finding a nice little silver lining in the fact that the draft was completely different than it was expected to be. So great perspective on that one.
Oh,
Speaking of your time in Vancouver, what was it like, or how did it feel when you got the seat?
yeah, obviously it was really cool. I mean, I was really tight with the 2 captains that came before me, Alex Knock-Liepert and Justin Sordiff. So to be able to take the reins from those 2 guys, I mean, that was pretty special to me. I mean, when we traded Sordiff, that was obviously my goal, was to be the next captain of the team. And when I was fortunate enough to be named the captain, I mean, it was really special. I mean, it's cool to be the captain of the team, and everybody kind of looks to you. I mean, I like that feeling, and I loved every second of it.
How did just on a follow up there? That's how did you hear that you were named captain? Like, how did that all transpire?
Yeah, they kind of just had a team meeting. It kind of shocked me too. I mean, it was probably about a month after we traded Swords, and we were supposed to go on a big road trip. So, right before we left, they kind of just brought everybody in and said they had an announcement, and then they announced me as the captain. And yeah, I was through the roof, and yeah, it was definitely an honor.
That's actually pretty cool. Thank you for talking more about that. Going back on your time in Vancouver, though, like I said, because you were the captain there, what were some of the things your teammates and I guess family, because you said your family relocated there, what did you guys all most enjoy about in Vancouver?
Probably the weather. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah,
that's not bad. I mean, a cool city, obviously. Vancouver, right on the ocean. spent a lot of time at the ocean when it was warm out. We got to play, spike ball and whatever you got to do over there. And yeah, I think that was just cool. I mean, not many teams in the Western Hockey League have that luxury of being able to go to the beach. And actually, my billet house was like kind of on a cliff looking over the ocean, so I had a really good setup. And I mean, yeah, it's just it's a top-notch organization too. I mean, they take care of you. You kind of get spoiled there, and it's a really nice place to play.
A little bit of a follow-up on that again. Sorry, Chris, I know I'm interrupting you there, but can you talk a bit more about your billet family? Just kind of what it was like, because I don't know if everybody, because I know I didn't play hockey enough, like good enough to grow up in a billet family. I just played house league, and I don't think not a lot of people really understand what a billet family actually is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I went in there when I was 16 or 15, I guess, and I had the same billet family for the first 3 years. It was awesome. I mean, I was the big brother. I had 3 little kids. They were like 8, 10, and 12, and I kind of just saw them grow up with me. So then before you know it, they were going to the same high school as I was. Like high school starts in grade 8 there. Kind of weird. So I had a little brother at the high school. I mean, yeah, and you kind of just join their family right off the jump, and especially when you're there for 3-4 years, I mean, you really get to know them well, and I still stay in touch with them to this day. And then I got traded over to Winnipeg, and then same thing. It was a little different. They're a little older, and their kids were moved out, so we were kind of their replacement as kids. And yeah, that was cool. I got to live with 2 other guys, 2 rookies, so we had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, it must be such a unique experience to be able to essentially just be constantly adopted by different families as your career progresses. Hopefully you don't get not too many families, because hopefully you don't get traded that often. But fortunately enough for you, it sounds like you were able to really develop some really great relationships that, and I think that's the other part. It's nice that you're able to keep in touch with those billet families as well. Obviously they were a big part of, supporting you throughout your journey, eh?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a good billet family is huge. I mean, it makes you feel comfortable. It's your home away from home. So I mean, just coming back to good billets and good food. I mean, it's huge.
Nice, of course, yeah. You had mentioned Matt Savoy. Could you tell us a little bit more about the relationship that you had with him, and then what it was like to reunite with him with the Winnipeg Ice?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we kind of grew up together. I think we started playing together when we were like 6 or 7 years old. So I'm really tight with him and his brother. I mean, they're 2 very good hockey players. So I mean, that kind of helped my development too. I mean, we went to like NAX, like a prep school together, and we kind of went through our junior together, and then to reconvene on the Winnipeg Ice. It was a really good team, and I mean, obviously he's a top-notch player, so being able to play with him was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good that you bring up NAX, because that was my next question about it. You were also fortunate to play with Dylan Genther back in your time there. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty dangerous back then as well. I think he had like 56 goals in 30 games or something. It was pretty crazy. I mean, him and Savoy played on the top line together, and I kind of anchored that second line, but played power play with them, and I kind of, you just stand in front of that, and he rips one
tap-ins.
Yeah, rips one-timers by you and gives you some tap-ins, so I loved it.
Nice. And what was it like when you got traded? What was that? Because that would obviously, like, you got drafted by Vancouver, and this was the only trade that you had experienced, right? So what was that like?
I was really, really happy it was the Winnipeg. I mean, I had a lot of connections there, like obviously Savoy and Owen Peterson. Like, those are 2 of my best buddies, and then I just knew a lot of guys like Langlois playing World Juniors with him, and so I was happy it was the Winnipeg. I don't think I would have wanted to go anywhere else. I think that was the only spot that interested me. So I was very happy it was able to work out. Obviously, it's different. You go from Vancouver over to Winnipeg, and a little cold there, and yeah, all that. But I mean, our team was unreal, so I was really excited to be a part of that.
And what was I don't know if you're able to share this, but what was like? How did you actually find out that you were traded? Were you engaged in some of those discussions? Did you kind of know it was coming, or what did that process? How did that process kind of play out?
Yeah, there was a while I didn't think I was going to get traded because I think the Giants wanted